Staying in West Africa, let's take a quick look first at the markets in West Africa. Well, now to look at what's behind the market numbers in Nigeria, we're joined by Kayode Akindele, who is a partner at 46 Parallels. Good morning, Kayode. Let's start with a broader macro-political issue, which of course can affect confidence. Terrorism in 3 states. The government has cracked down, apparently. What has the effect been on business confidence, perceptions, and indeed the markets?
The effect has been generally been good. From the swiftness of the movement, especially straight after the president's announcement of state of emergency, it looks like the attack, the offensive has been planned weeks in advance. And if you look at that, as well as the government committee, which is trying to negotiate with Boko Haram elements, as well as the announcement yesterday of the release of certain prisoners, which was one of the conditions for talks with Boko Haram, it's like a 2-pronged strategy, which the market is taking quite well.
Yeah, Kayode, also looking at Nigeria's sovereign wealth fund, plans to invest that $1 billion and an allocation to Nigerian equities. So there'll obviously be great interest in which equities will this money go to?
It will be interesting. I think the 2 main areas people are looking at is how the money is going to be managed. Is it going to be outsourced, or is it going to be done directly by the sovereign wealth fund? If it's outsourced, it's obviously a fill-up to the budding fund management industry in Nigeria and provide more funds for them. And in terms of the equities, we expect that most of the equities will be the blue chip equities, which will continue to go up in valuation. But in overall, effect on the market should be positive.
Yeah, I suppose there's some obvious blue chips, and I suppose there might be a couple on the borders, and there would be great interest in which would be left in and which would be left out. A talking point at the MPC address yesterday, the treatment of Amcon bonds, and it sounds complicated, but transferring the Amcon bond debt obligation to the government, are there risks here? Is the taxpayer taking on too much? What's the motivation here, and what will the effect be?
Amcon were in a difficult position. They had to refinance between October this year and the end of next year about $40 billion worth of bonds. And in essence, it was going to be a very tall order to do that all for the private sector. So what they've come some kind of halfway house where they're paying cash and liquid instruments on $2 trillion, and then the rest is with central bank. I think the effect is it might reduce transparency, because Amcon is in effect a government institution owned by CBN and Ministry of Finance. And so this is almost an in-house settlement, which might reduce transparency in the long term. But I also think it prevents further government crowding out of the private sector from the debt market. But in all, I think it also emphasizes the fact that the Amcon debt, which was $40 billion, which has not been officially part of the DMO's figures on Nigeria's national debt, should have been, because in effect, it is a federal government obligation.
So what is the effect going to be on the total debt stock in Nigeria? And I suppose also perceptions of risk. If government is going to, in effect, take over the obligation, that can affect behavior among other bond issuers.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, the outstanding $40 billion, even before this announcement, should have been taken into account as part of the national debt, because in effect it's a federal government obligation. But the market chose to basically ignore it. I think that'll probably continue. I think in the end, the GDP debt ratio should increase if this is taken into account. But then you have to also take into account the fact that GDP has been rebased, and it's expected to go between 40% to 60% higher. So that could mean that in effect the GDP to debt ratio might actually just stay the same, irrespective of this being added to it.
And what about, well, let's go back to the stock market then and talk about Transcorp's results. That was one of the big reports yesterday. Earnings per share down 43%. This is a company that's making big investments in the power sector. It's clearly a growth sector in Africa as a whole. Lots of risks, though, too, in that sector, infrastructural type risks, distance, and so on. So what about this company? Is it weaker? Is its weakness a time to get into it?
I think Transcorp in the next few years, especially if it executes its power plans, is going to be a very interesting stock for investors to look at. At the moment, its main asset is the hotel in Abuja, which is the main hotel in Nigeria. And occupancy has been down due to some security concerns in 2012, which should be improved now with increased security in Abuja. But if you look at the power sector, they've taken over the Ughelli power station as part of the consortium. That could see a significant uplift in revenues from next year going forward. And so I think this year has almost been a year of consolidation. They've spent quite a lot on their bid for the power project, as well as a couple of other projects with Hilton, which have expanded their hotel portfolio. But I think as the power project revenues start flowing in, you will see a serious uptick in revenues going forward.
Yeah, it does seem to be a high-risk, high-reward kind of sector, as always. Okay, just broadly on the NSE, what are you interested in at the moment? Where are the opportunities? What companies are reporting? Where's the interest at the moment?
There have been quite some interesting results, and a lot of people are looking at the insurance sector. It's a sector that's generally underperformed, especially compared to the related banking sector, and it's a sector that people expect to grow as the economy continues to grow. And as a sector, a lot of foreign investors, especially foreign insurance companies, are looking at. And so there's a lot of M&A expected in the insurance sector, both from external companies as well as internal companies trying to get stronger. So that's a sector I have keeping a close eye on. Another sector is obviously the breweries. They've done well in the past, and we are expected to continue to do well going forward.